Back here in Florida, spring training continues. We're talking with John Henry and Tom Werner, and obviously things couldn't be better for the Red Sox right now. You're defending champs, and you've got a lot of the same team together, but it's an interesting and challenging time in Major League Baseball. Let's begin with the number of unsigned free agents. And you said today, a free market is just that, a free market. You don't know where a market will go. But there seems to be unrest on the player side because of all of this. Is there trouble ahead because of these unsigned free agents?
There shouldn't be. I think the players, the union, has to engage with baseball about the things that they're unhappy about, rather than just, comment all the time. There is what I would call a negative narrative. I think that's what the commissioners called it, going on at this point. But what needs to happen is, if the players are upset, the union needs to engage. I'm on the negotiating committee of Major League Baseball. They need to engage and talk about what they'd like to see changed. And it's a negotiation. We've ended up where we are because of a series of negotiations where both sides have given and taken in many different negotiations. But again, as I said earlier today, anytime you have a free market, it doesn't always behave, it doesn't matter what the market is, it doesn't always behave the way every participant would want it to behave every year, or sometimes over multiple years.
As John said, there is a bit of a false narrative. We would prefer here the beginning of spring training to be talking about play on the field, but we can't ignore the fact that certain players are unhappy, and there is a narrative that we don't think is accurate. The fact is that the average salary of a major league player has increased dramatically in the last 5 or 7 years, from $2.5 million a player to $4 million a player. There are 45 players who make more than $20 million a year. And industry revenues, 55% of industry revenues go to players as opposed to the NFL, the NBA, which is a smaller percentage. Nevertheless, as John said, the most important thing is to sit in a room and talk about these issues. We're in the middle of a CBA, and it doesn't do anybody any good to say the players are so unhappy that we're going to have a strike mid-season. That's silly.
When you talk about that conversation going on between the two sides, are you happy where it is now? Is there enough conversation going on? Is that discussion happening?
No, there's not enough. There's not enough engagement, not enough discussion going on, as far as I'm concerned, given the level of discontent that's being voiced.
And this also gets tied in when we talk about rule changes, right? Because that's something you'd like to incorporate, rule changes with the blessing of Major League Baseball players, and that hasn't really happened yet. We are going to see the 20-second clock in spring training. How important? And I know you've been very involved in the pace of play, Tom.
Well, we talk about this, that you need the cooperation of players to implement some of these changes, but I think it's common sense that some of these changes are beneficial to the game. How often do you hear someone when you go to the game saying it's a bit too long? And that doesn't mean that we don't love the game, but the idea of a pitch clock has worked in the minor leagues, and it's really just sort of reinforcing this feeling of get the ball, throw the ball. And John is in fact a proponent of a pitch clock that would be actually less than 20 seconds. But let's do some implementation in spring training, and let's get the ball moving.
Have you talked with your players about that? Has there been much discussion here yet? How do the Red Sox feel about some of this?
I think that they understand that we need to be responsive to our fans, whose attention obviously is less than what it was when John and I were in our 20s.
I mean, a game that is pitched by Chris Sale is a game you're glued to. You really want to watch. You don't want to, in this day and age with the different types of entertainment that are available every day, baseball needs to compete against those different forms of entertainment, and so you need a pace of play. You shouldn't have viewers at home or in the stands just sitting there waiting. I think sometimes I feel like it doesn't matter whether it's a pitcher or a hitter, sometimes they're so focused on the game, as they should be, that they don't realize that people are waiting for we're waiting for something to happen. And so we should pick up the pace and have more of a pace that we saw in 50, 60 years ago when the game was the national pastime and you didn't have a lot of other forms of entertainment that you have today.
Well, we will see where it comes. It's going to be fun to watch at spring training. They're telling me I have a pace of show to keep up, so they're sending me to break. Thank you for coming by, gentlemen. Always enjoy it. Tom Werner, John Henry with me. We'll come back and continue. Don't go away. Red Sox in Fort Myers, presented by Jordan's Furniture, continues.